So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Dalles Chamber Community Affairs. Today, our guest is Beatriz Lynch. She is with SafeSpace. She's going to give us a little bit more information on what that is and what that means and the different work that they're doing in both the different counties. I know you're in Hood County, and I also know you're Wasco County, but I'm not sure beyond that, but you can share that with us. But before we do that, I'm going to have the room introduce themselves so you kind of know who you're talking to. So I'm going to start with Mr. Phil.
Oh, good morning. I'm Phil Brady, Wasco County Commissioner. This is timely. We just talked about safe space at our county commission last week. And I was going to talk about bridges to health. I'll back up and do that later. But we often do a little introduction of what's new. There was big events in Shaniko in the South County. The water supply system broke down. The pump was out. Chief Scott Mars started working on it. It took a while to get the parts. The parts have finally arrived 2 weeks later. And so the city or the county supplied a big water bladder. So people had water. It wasn't potable water. And so they were boiling it. But then another group, what's called Bridges to Health, which I'll just describe some other day, was called on. And this is what's great about Bridges to Health. They're community health workers. And so they don't have a lot of money, but they can use the money whatever needs to be done, which is, this was a good example. There was a couple of very fragile people that they moved from Shaniko to Madras and put them in a hotel next to Safeway so that they were safe. People were having trouble. How do I keep myself clean? So they got sandy wipes and also secured a porta potty. So the bridges to help these community health workers, I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about them because they do so many different things and they're really going to be helpful, especially in our rural areas.
Awesome. Thank you. Dan Spot.
Thank you, Lisa. Dan Spots, Economic Development Officer with the City of the Dalles. So a couple of things. We have the latest in a series of workshops with the Urban Renewal Board on Tuesday, 5:30. We're going to be conducting reviewing a very comprehensive fiscal analysis of the 30-year history of the urban renewal, looking toward the district winding down by 2029 and next steps for the agency itself, talking about some of the accomplishments of the agency over the years. Phil and I, Commissioner Brady and I, are going back to DC first week of March as part of the Dalles Community Outreach Team. We'll be talking about expansion of the airport business park, a dedicated training hangar for the college's training program, development of an early learning center, child care center in the Dalles. We're renovating an old middle school there and hope to be gathering the sufficient resources to pull that off. We have a grant pending with EPA to take care of the hazardous waste there, asbestos, things like that. And this will be managed by Columbia Gorge Education Service District. College has a role as a training partner there. So a lot of things going on. Enough for me for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Dan Richardson.
Thank you, Lisa, and everybody. Good morning. Dan Richardson, one of your 5 city councilors in the Dalles and prospective running for Wasco County Commission this May, and hopes to join Commissioner Brady. And thank you for sharing that story, Phil, about Shaniko. One of my areas of interest or emphasis is natural resources. It's a professional background of mine. So water resources, wildfire, forestry, things like that, which obviously is a particular emphasis in many areas of the county's work. And as we feel increasing impacts of erratic seasons and lower snowpack and things like that from climate change, water supply will continue to be probably a bigger and more pressing issue for a lot of our communities. Sorry to go on at length. There's a lot going on in our little corner of the world. Just one more thing. One puzzle that both our city and county need to solve, this is a good one, is how to thoughtfully and meaningfully use our Google funds, which will be coming in increasingly over the next 15 and 20 years. And pleased to say that's something I've been nagging people about behind the scenes, and we are getting deep into that conversation this year. So I'm looking forward to being part of that conversation, and hopefully our city and county both will have a transparent and thoughtful process for how to use that money. So stay tuned.
Thanks, Dan. Scott?
Good morning, everyone. Scott McKay. I am the community liaison for Circles of Care, which is a program of Age Plus, which gives me the opportunity with working with older adults, or I say we're with my peer group. And a couple of things I'd like to mention that regarding one story is that we had a individual older woman call us a couple of weeks ago, and she needed food. She needed someone to get groceries for her or take her to the grocery store. We tried to contact her several times by phone, and as often the case, folks don't answer the phone, and we could not leave a message. So on the way back from Portland, we stopped by her place and met with her, and so we found out that she would like a friendly visitor, someone to visit once a week, but also she needed food. And I mentioned Meals on Wheels, and she was not receiving Meals on Wheels. So one of the things at Circles of Care, we make connections with other agencies, and we connected her with Tammy Fuller from the Area Agency on Aging. And Tammy had known about her back in November, but was not able to get a hold of her. So I encouraged Tammy to stop by and visit with her, and she did, and was able to sign her up with Meals on Wheels, so she'll get at least a meal once every day. And Tammy, went beyond, and when she went to Meals on Wheels to turn in the paperwork, she actually picked up a meal for that day and took it back to the woman. The other thing is regarding Bridges of Health. When I was talking with Lily, she mentioned that Yesenia from Bridges of Health has been working with her, trying to get her on Medicaid, which will provide a lot more services. So that was an example of where Bridges of Health is working within the community, like Phil said, to help folks. The last thing is that if you want presentations, we are working on a PowerPoint presentation to share with different groups regarding dementia and brain health. And we are working on a dementia-friendly community in the Dalles and Wasco County. And so we're hoping to get some presentation together by spring. So I will be talking with Lisa to see if we can get on the schedule sometime when we actually get our act together. So
Sounds great.
okay, thank you.
You know how to get a hold of me, so we'll make that happen. So
Yep.
yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks for doing that for our community. Tanya.
Tanya with Northwest Natural. I'll just keep it short and sweet so we can listen to Beatrice.
That was short and sweet. Thanks, ma'am. All right, Beatrice, it is all yours. Yes, it is. It's all yours now. So I will, just for I will watch the chat. So if anybody does have a question or raise a hand, I'll try to do that. So you don't have to do that while you're talking.
Great.
So I'll do my best.
Thank you. Oh, this is nice of you guys to have me so early in the morning too. My name is Beatriz Lynch. I think I have met some of you. I know Tanya. Scott, I know that you've been in some of the presentations that I've given, I think through the Lions or Kiwanis or somewhere. So again, my name is Beatriz Lynch. I'm the Executive Director of SafeSpace Children's Advocacy Center. And I'm going to do a really quick brief introduction of what a CAC is. A Children's Advocacy Center is the place where children are brought when there is a concern or a suspicion that they've been abused. What usually happens in a case like that is that the first call is either made to law enforcement or Child Protective Services, our DHS office. And then the second call is usually made to us. So what we do is we gather all of the folks that need to know what happened to this child in one place. We work with doctors. We've got 2 doctors and a nurse practitioner that help us out. We have what are called forensic interviewers, and those are folks that are especially trained to talk to children to elicit the story from their own words and their own way of telling it. So all of these people come to the center and are there, are able to watch and hear the interview in real time. And the interview is recorded so that if somebody needs to go back and re-listen to it, rewatch it to make sure that they got the story correct, they can do that. And that eliminates the number of times the child has to be asked what happened to them. We also work with the doctors that are able to do an exam right there at our center. We are a medical model, which means we're basically a medical clinic. We are able to watch or to do those rape kits in our office as well. The only kids that we would not be able to see in our clinic is if there is an acute injury that then they need to go to the ER for that. So all of those things happen at one time at our center instead of having the families go to all of these places to tell their story. So what would happen before we opened our doors is that something, they would call law enforcement or DHS, that the child would have to go talk to DHS, their caseworkers there. They would have to go sometimes to the police department or the sheriff's office and talk to the officer or the detective there. If they needed a medical exam, the child would have to go either try to get into their own medical provider or to go to the ER. So each time, each place, the child would be asked, what happened to you, honey? And these are all well-meaning folks that need to know what happened so they can make decisions of what happens next. But each time, the DHS office caseworker would ask the police officer, the doctor, and sometimes the nurse and a social worker at the hospital. So you're up to 4, 5, 6 times that the child's having to tell their story. And what happened that one time, and this is the reason that the CAC was formed in Hood River, is that that happened to a child. And the district attorney at the time, Carrie Rasmussen, said, we can't have this again. The child kept telling their story over and over again. And finally, it felt like nobody was believing the child, and she quit talking. And so the perpetrator didn't get convicted. Nothing happened. And so he's back out in the world, probably abusing other children, and nothing happened for this case for this child. So that's the reason that the CAC was created in the first place in our area. We didn't have a CAC in our area. The closest one was either Portland, Bend, or LeGrand. And so for those rare cases where the detectives like, we really need to have a complete assessment of this child, they would have to drive to those areas to get an assessment. So in 2009, the CAC was formed in Hood River, and it just served Hood River County. Since then, we have expanded. We now serve Wasco County, Gillum, Wheeler County, and we also serve Klickitat County, which is kind of unusual because it's a different state, and but we're all one community in the Gorge. That our families travel back and forth across the river, and I think we're kind of in a unique area where we're just one big community. So we're really excited that we are able to serve this wide variety of folks in our area. Last year, we also contracted, or the Intertribe Police came to us and said, we'd like to contract with you. Because you guys all know this, we live in this area. What has happened in those in-lieu sites, they used to be just for fishing. More and more families are moving in and living there permanently. So our Intertribe Police, which were tasked basically to do fish and wildlife, have now had to pivot to be more of a traditional law enforcement. And so when there's population, there's the stuff that happens in population, domestic violence, child abuse and stuff. So all up and down the river, the 4 tribes that have fishing rights on there, if there's something happening to a child there, we will be the place that they will come to. So we're very excited about that. We've got a lot of work to do in order to learn how to work with the Native communities. I know there's always been a little bit of a tug and pull as far as trying to get into the tribes, to LILO, just because a lot of mistrust of agencies. So we are going to be working hard the next few years to figure out how to build those relationships with the tribe. And there's a question?
Yes, Phil Brady, go ahead.
So while we're talking about tribes, do you also extend to the reservation on both Yakima and Warm Springs?
Actually, Warm Springs has their own CAC. So if Children's Advocacy Center, and so does Yakima. So if that happens in one of those areas, they will go to their own CAC. This is basically just for the in lieu sites along the Columbia River.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So that's where we're at. That's what a Child Advocacy Center does. In 3.5 years ago, we entered into a project to buy and build our own facility. We were operating a really small rented space in Hood River up on the heights. 3.5 years ago, the building sold, and we were kind of in a vulnerable position where like we could be asked to leave, and where would we go? And we had also outgrown that space. We were fine when we were just serving Hood River County. We were averaging about 50 cases a year. Since adding the rest of the counties, the year before we saw 180 cases. Last year we saw 187. So we know that there's a huge need for cases. And we're also getting better at educating our law enforcement and our community about what to do when they suspect or they know something's going on with a child. So that's part of it as well, is that we're out there trying to educate our communities about when to call. A lot of the times people are hesitant to call and say, well, I don't know for sure if something's happening and I don't want to cause any problems. Well, we have a team of people that are investigating. And if nothing's happening to that child, great. But if there is, you could have been the one that stopped it. So we're also really wanting people to understand how to call and how to make a referral, so that kids can be seen and the situation that they're in can be looked at and see whether they're safe or not. So
Dan, I'm going to let Dan ask a question really quick.
Yeah.
Thank you. So previous role at Columbia Gorge Community College, I worked with Nancy Patton from Child Care Partners Resource and Referral. So they do training and mandatory reporting, and of course work with all of the child care providers, public and private. Do you work with Nancy to kind of make her aware of what you're doing, and thus the different child care providers in the region?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we added that prevention part of it to our program. And so we did reach out to Nancy to try to get some trainings out to all of the licensed child care providers out there. It's a project. I mean, you know, all of those folks are busy, and the mandatory reporting training that we have that also talks about what to look for, what signs of child abuse to look for. It's about a 2.5-hour training. So we always try to figure out ways to do that. But one of the exciting things is with our new bigger space is that we have a training room, and we can probably, and this is something that's in the works, that we will have a training that's maybe every 3 months, and people will know that there's a training going on, and you can plan ahead to do that. So lots of stuff in the works there.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
One other question on geographic scope. You had mentioned Gillum and Wheeler. I think I missed Sherman County. Do you also cover Sherman?
We don't, and that's been historical. Sherman County contracts with Kids Center and Bend, and I think it's just when we opened our doors, we were too new, and they're like, well, we have a contract with Bend and we're good. It kind of makes sense, and we have from time to time gone back to Sherman County and said, hey, you know, it makes sense for you guys to contract with us because we share the same judges, we share the same DHS workers. It's District 9 and the 7th Judicial Branch so Hood River, Wasco, Sherman, Gillum, and Wheeler all have the same judges, have the same caseworkers, everything. So it does make sense for them to contract with us, but they haven't yet. And one of these days, maybe.
Okay, got my attention. I heard you didn't mention Sherman. I thought there might be a reason there. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So 3.5 years ago, we started a capital campaign. We set out to raise $2 million. We ended up looking at our campaign and readjusted, and we ended up with our goal of $5 million. We are about $5.5 million into this. We were able to buy a building, remodel it. We moved in about 3 weeks ago. So we're brand new into this building. We've got enough space that we could have 2 assessment areas so that we could potentially see 2 families at the same time, unrelated. They would never have to meet in the middle because that's really important to us. We collect a lot of very sensitive information and we really value people's privacy. So, but the building is set up where we could see 2 families and they would never have to meet in the middle, which is really, really important. In our previous building, we were able to see 1 case at a time, 2 maximum a day, because these assessments take a long time. They take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. We're really talking to the family. We're interviewing the child. The exams take a minimum of 30 minutes because the doctors are really looking at and documenting any injury, asking up those follow-up questions and things like that. So it was really important for us to be able to see kids when they are ready to talk. You know, if you've got a kiddo that's disclosed some abuse, they're ready to talk now, not 3 weeks from now. So it was really important for us to be able to see kids in a timely manner. So we are super excited. We're going to have a grand opening on March 20th, inviting the community who has completely helped us build this facility. The other part that we're really excited, and that's the next step of this project, is that we have about 3,000 square feet of extra room that we are building a mental health hub for children. Our focus is children 18 and under. It's really important for kids to be seen. Our community is hurting. Our kids are hurting. We reached out to a couple of community partners to see if they wanted to expand what they're doing. The next door has a wonderful program for counseling for children. They do drug and alcohol. We wanted them to offer them the space and to expand their services. I don't think they're in a position to do that quite yet. Other agencies just kind of weren't in that position. So we figured it's going to be up to us. And the time has never been more critical. In Hood River, where our center is located, it's not the Hood River Center, though. I want to make sure of that. It's the gorge. We serve the entire gorge. We are located in Hood River because that's where we started, and the biggest donations came from the representative Anna Williams, who was Hood River's representative for a long time. So she was able to secure $2 million from the state of Oregon for this project. So that's why we are located in Hood River. But I always make sure to say we're not a Hood River Center. We serve the entire gorge. But in our small city of Hood River, in the last 9 months, we've had 3 young people commit suicide. It is really important. And I know that the Dalles have had a couple of suicides of young people as well. There's been a couple across the river. I know of 1 overdose of a young person. We are not prepared in our area for what's coming with the fentanyl usage and all of that stuff. Our schools are overrun right now with behavior stuff, a lot of sexual, what do they call it? Problematic sexual behaviors in school that has just kind of risen since the pandemic. And I'm not sure what happened during the pandemic. Our kids were on screen time a lot of time. I know that coming out of the pandemic, we saw a lot of kiddos coming in that were watching porn at 8 and 9 years old. And a child that young cannot process what they're watching. And they're thinking that a relationship is what they're watching on this, porn sites and stuff. So there's a lot of need for mental health for children. I can tell you that the kids that we see, the medical exams, especially the girls, 90% of them have scars for cutting or actively are cutting. So again, right now, I am on a push to get our mental health hub open because we want to work with the schools. We want to be able to provide some solutions for kiddos that are caught, smoking marijuana at school. Right now, I think a lot of them are still getting suspended, which makes no sense. because you're just giving them more time to go smoke pot. So education, and we need to lighten the load for our other community partners. I know that the next door has anywhere from 80 to 100 kids on a wait list to be seen for mental health. Center for Living, you know, they've gone through a lot of issues the last few years. I don't know that they're fully staffed to be able to see kids yet, or the amount of the need that is out there. So we want to be able to just provide some relief for those agencies, and if we can take on some of the kids that they have on wait lists, that would be fantastic. And to work with the schools, all of the school districts, to develop a meaningful drug and alcohol program talk. I don't know what it's going to take, but we just cannot. I lose my words because this is such an urgent issue right now for our communities. So that's where we're at. Questions?
On that last point, you probably are already connected with Pat Sublett, Columbia Gorge ESD. All the districts.
Yes, we are part of the ESD network. So that name is not familiar, but there's a woman that we work with through the ESD.
Probably working with one of her departments.
Yeah.
And kudos to Anna Williams. She and Representative Bonham shepherded a similar appropriation for the child care center that I mentioned. So
right.
It's, yeah, and she continues in a different role at the state level now. Good ally.
Oh yeah, she's fantastic, and kids are her passion. So this is, yeah, we continue to engage her from time to time when we're working on stuff. Any other questions, or before I go in?
One other question is, how do you work and complement each other as far as the CASA program?
Okay. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the CASA program. So we come in at the beginning. We are part of the investigation. So we are fact gatherers. And the reason that, and I should explain this, we only take referrals from either law enforcement or DHS because they're the investigators. We're not investigators. We cannot open an investigation on a case. We're basically the fact gatherers at the time. So once the family leaves our facility, then law enforcement and DHS still have to perform their, you know, their duties. They need to go out and investigate and do that. Our role after the family leaves is to make sure that the family follows up with any recommendations from the doctor. We will be there to support them if they have to go to court. We do referrals right now to mental health. It's really hard to get kids seen right now. We've got a couple of private practice mental health providers that will see some kids, but not all of them, obviously. So we work really hard on the back end to try to get them seen by somebody. So that's our role. CASA comes in at the end. So once kids have been removed from the home and they placed in foster care, that's when CASA comes in.
Bill, go ahead.
My question has, I was looking at our county commission packet, and yeah, this came up last week at county commission looking for funding as part of the multidisciplinary team. And because your expansion, you had asked for money, and Danielle DeCount, the deputy DA, reworked things in the budget money that wasn't sent to be able to meet that request. And I'm really glad that happened. It sounded like from this this funding that you're requesting, as I understood it, only went for the investigative part of your work. Is the mental health hub, is that could be separately funded, or is that a part of the whole budget?
It's going to be probably the whole budget. Right now, we're trying to figure out if we're going to like rent it out, if there's a group of therapists that would rent it out and have an agreement with us that they would see our families, or is it going to come right underneath our umbrella? And it probably will come underneath our umbrella. So there's a lot of funding once you're up and running, because you can bill for those, you know, groups and therapies and all of that stuff. There's not a lot of money for startup, and we will need probably in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $500,000 to start it up for 2 to 3 years. And I've got a plan that is a 3-year plan, and after year 3, it will fund itself. by reimbursements of insurance. But it's the year one that we need a lot of money, because I need to, if we're building this program, we need a coordinator that's going to bring all of everything that we need to happen. We have a medical doctor. So we're kind of unique in the fact that we have doctors that can prescribe medication. And so if you've got a kiddo that needs some depression medication, our doctors can prescribe it. Therapists will follow that make sure that, you know, the medication is working or working properly. So we're kind of set up really well because we have some of the major pieces in place already. It's just finding that startup money so that I can pay folks to do their work for the first year or so while we start building that billing cycle. I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of went on a tangent there. Wasco County came on board in 2018, I believe. Our contract with Wasco County is for a little over $50,000 a year. I believe our increase, I asked for a $10,000 increase a year, and I don't think that was, that's what we got. And I have to tell you that 60% of the cases that we see are from Wasco County. And right now, $50,000 doesn't go a long ways. So we're not fully funded from Wasco County. So we are having to make that up from fundraising, a lot of fundraising, and other grants and things like that.
And let me, not to discredit your number there. The report here said 46% came from Wasco County in 2021 and 2022. Is that 60% an increase? Or I'm sure it's a lot, but
no, and I'm not sure where you're getting that number.
It came from the statement that Daniel DeCant made. He's deputy district attorney here when this was presented to our board. But a lot of kids. I know the percentage just don't tell the story, so I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
Tanya Brumley, you have a question?
Yeah, I think it's really important too. And I imagine the audience here is aware of this, but since it's being recorded, that we understand what it looks like in our county if we didn't have this opportunity for these kids and we didn't have this program. Because I remember being on the United Way allocations committee when you guys come in and look for allocations annually, that the stories we heard, you know, I've been on that committee for 10, 15 years from when it was just serving Hood River. And now, you know, tears came to my eyes listening to these stories, and also how your prevention of adding trauma to these children affects the entire scenario and outcome for these kids. And I think it's so important when we're looking at public funds to understand, you know, there's a lot of infrastructure we need in this county, but, you know, investing in lives and traumatic experiences for kids so they have a future, you cannot put a price tag on that. And I think Beatrice, if you could just speak to what that might look like if we aren't able to keep you funded for this area.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just very traumatizing for children. Like I said, one scenario is, and this is a true scenario, and I used to work in the school, so I know this, you know, a kiddo would say something to the teacher, the teacher would ask a little bit more questions, and the kiddo would, you know, disclose. And then the teacher was like, well, this is very serious. Let's, you know, walk them down to the principal's office. Again, the principal would say, what happened, you know, and maybe the kiddo would talk to the principal. And then the principal would say, well, you know, we need to get the school counselor or the school nurse involved in this. And then there's 3 people there at the school that this kiddo's told their story. And then the police officer would come, and then the DHS would come. We're up to 5 times. Oh, this kiddo needs to go see the doctor. So they're at the doctor's office 6, maybe 7 times there. Then the district attorney would say, well, yeah, we need to take this case to a grand jury or whatever. So the district attorney would want to talk to this kiddo. So we're up to 8, maybe 9 times the kids having to tell their story. So very traumatizing. because a lot of the times in Wasco County, I'll tell you this, in Wasco County, the kids would go to a DHS office in a dark room where it was kind of they had recording equipment in this, back closet area that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. And then the kid would still have to go to the police department. And I mean, all of us have been pulled over and we all start sweating when we're talking to a police officer. I can't imagine how terrifying it must have been for a young kiddo to go into the police department and have to tell a police officer what happened to them. So very trauma. I think the system sometimes re-traumatizes kiddos. And then if the case didn't go anywhere, then the kid be like, why did I go through all of this if nothing happened? So that's really important to know that there will be some justice happening when kids disclosed in a proper way, and then the information is then acted on. So that's really, really important. And ultimately, I'm a child advocate, and I want the best for children. And this is where we need to invest our money, so that we're not investing it in those kids that were victimized and never got the proper healing or the proper care. Then they turn into victimizers. So, is that kind of what you wanted me to talk a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's just helpful because I love this program. I wish we didn't have to have this program, but Northwest Natural is a huge advocate. And as long as I'm in the Columbia Gorge, we will continue to be an advocate for the program. And I just don't feel like you can invest enough in kids because they are the future. And how we choose to invest in them is huge. Maybe also speak, now that you're into your new building, if there's other ways like soft. I know you have those hard expenses, but soft needs. You've got a huge building now. Do you need certain things? Just maybe it's art decor. Is there ways to collaborate with other entities and have like a rotating art throughout the center or something like that, which would also be therapeutic for a lot of kids? You could have it low towards the floor, it doesn't have to be high at adult level. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do for kids that make it very inviting.
Yes, and we are, like I said, we're newly into our building and we've got lots of plans. One of the things that we want to do is precisely that, is art, and art that reflects our community and the communities in our community. So Native American art would be great. We've got a lot of Hispanic and Mexican families, so something like that, so that once a kiddo walks in, it's not only welcoming, but it's a reflection of their own community. So yeah, love that idea of having rotating art, because like we said, it's got to be a nice, friendly place to come in to talk about something horrible that's happened to them. One of the things that I did want to mention too is part of this capital campaign project is that we do see that we, and I'm going to stick to my number, about 60% of the kids that we see come from Wasco County. And we want to do a satellite office there. That was always been in the plan. The plan keeps getting pushed because other things happen and other priorities. But one of the things that we are looking at is how do we do a satellite office in the Dalles, so that instead of having the families come to us, we can go there. And sometimes it happens in the middle of the night, and it would be so much easier for our doctors and our team to go to the Dalles to see them than having them come this way. So that's still a dream, and that's still in the works. As soon as, there's like phase 1 and phase 2 and then phase 3 of this project. Questions?
Mid-Columbia Center for Living comes to mind on that one. Any potential there? Of course, confidentiality, space issues. I know it gets complicated, but
it does. One of the things that I keep hoping that they revise is the hospital said that they were going to have a new campus at some point. And if those talks come back up again, I'd love to be at the table to see if the hospital could, we need 3 rooms, an exam room, an interview room, and then kind of a waiting room. So
the Resolution Center on 10th Street, I'd defer to Commissioner Brady for recent history on that one. Those discussions are still underway though, but I think it's a ways off. Phil?
Right, I'm thinking of a couple of things, moving pieces. The victims advocacy is going to stay in the courthouse, and that's one of those imposing buildings. It wouldn't be a great child's feel-good place. The county offices are moving to what was the Gobi building. We have a lot of space there. We'll probably be filling that up. That's on 3rd Street across from the bank. The Resolution Center is going to be a secure facility. I think, yeah, it might have clinical space in it. That's coming along, but well, you're a year or two into the future with your thinking as well.
Yeah, no, we're not
The
not quite there yet.
well, I'm encouraging North Central Public Health to find a new place. They're now in the old hospital annex, those concrete buildings. And so as they move into a new space, that might work well because they'll have some clinical space there.
Yeah. One of the things that I know that Center for Living's kind of struggled with, and just without knowing when they build a new building, is that they see everybody. They see perpetrators and victims. And, you know, there's been a couple of times when a child victim shows up and there's a perpetrator in the waiting room right there. So kind of those logistics is what I'm always thinking about. So the Resolution Center, I'm not sure what the clientele there is going to be like. So we got some conversations to happen in the future.
Yeah, I think the Resolution Center clientele is going to be there's going to be people coming in off the street.
You may, I don't know if this would be a good fit or not, but the Early Learning Center will be, the ESD will operate and maintain that. Now we still have our own pile of fundraising to do on it. It's a capital project, probably about $17 to $18 million capital. We've got 2 million into that, and there are a couple of several opportunities we're looking at now at the state and federal level, and I don't know if that might have space or not, but maybe catch up with Pat Sublet on that one.
Yeah,
because we're about 2 years out.
I would love to have those conversations. And sometimes when you go out for those funding sources and foundational stuff, they love to know that you're partnering with other folks. So
yeah,
you know, it could be a win-win for both of us.
Yeah, this is it's a partnership between the school district, ESD, the college, many others. We've got letters of support coming from probably 25 different organizations.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I know there's some really good stuff happening in the Dalles, so I'm kind of excited to move on to that part of it. Fundraising hasn't been as fun for me, but I love program building, and so right now it's the fun part of it. We're looking at a mental health and how that's going to work, and then once we get that part of it, then I will concentrate on you know, I like the idea of having a mobile, like one community has their big bus. We could do something like that too, where we if we could find the money to buy one of those, we can have a traveling CAC almost. So. Lots of work that we're doing. You know, I talk a lot about the business end of it and stuff. And the other day I was asked to talk about like why I do this work. And it made me think about like the last couple of cases that we saw where the young girl that comes in and she's wearing her hoodie and she's angry, and everybody's like, I don't know if she's going to say anything because she's just really angry and she's got all of these things going on. We were able to get her to talk. She was able to tell her story, and it was a pretty horrendous story that's been happening for a long time. I think she tried to tell some people in the past, but nobody was really paying attention, or they weren't paying attention to what she was actually trying to say. So she had felt like nobody was listening to her, and this was happening. Perpetrator, again, is somebody in her house, stepdad. And, you know, she talked about like, he's a really good dad to my siblings. And I didn't, you know, I don't want to hurt my family. I just want it to stop. When she left her building, her hoodie was down. It was like a huge weight had been lifting. knowing that she still has a long road ahead of her. Her family's got a lot of healing to do as well. But it was like she was heard and she was believed, and it was a huge effort. And when she walked out, again, knowing, you know, we all know that she's got a long road ahead of her, but it was so nice to see her face. She wasn't had her hoodie down or anything like that. So this is why we do this, so that we can provide a little bit of support and a little bit of comfort in a time that is just really hard for not just the kid. It destroys and disrupts families. If your child has been abused, it affects you too as a parent. So, and we have to do this. Our kids are hurting right now. You walk into any school, any educator, and they will tell you it's rough. It's really rough in the schools.
So I have a last question for you, Beatrice. Is just curious. So what can we do other than, obviously, you know, there's people on here that are in charge of budgets and so forth, but there's a lot of people here that have a lot of connections. So what one or two things could we do that would help out your program?
So right now I'm looking for funding. I mean, I'm looking for funding to finish the capital campaign. You know, we took out a loan for the last $500,000. I've got our grand opening is March 30th, and we're going to put out kind of a last ditch effort. Like we want to raise $100,000 by March 30th to kind of put a topper to this project. The other part is mental health is really just needed. I know we have a lot of other agencies that we're probably all looking to hire therapists. We need to put our heads together as a community, and we need to do better. Our hospitals need to have a better way to take care of people that are having mental health crisis. And we just need to do better. So it's really hard other than funding. You know, and it sounds, that's not a lot of people don't get behind, like, I just want to give you money, but really the money is what is going to get us to do the work that we do. The other part is that we do have fundraisers. Show up for our fundraisers, and you know, we take donations all year long for blankets and stuffed animals for kids. Every child that walks through our door and leaves, we offer them something comforting for them. We have snacks and things like that in our center that families are there for 2 to 4 hours. So we provide a snack and we try to make it as comfortable as possible. All of those things are helpful. Sign up to be a volunteer. Again, you know, you're not going to be a volunteer talking to kids, but you can be a volunteer behind the scenes to help us win our fundraisers, to help us do stuff around our building. We have a building now. I'm in charge of making sure that our roof is correct and all of the landscaping and things like that. All of that stuff takes work and money. So there's lots of opportunities for it to help.
So awareness is a huge piece of that. So are you able to kind of keep yourself in the forefront by reaching out to the chambers and letting the public know so that we can share that information when it comes about, and having, like, maybe, I don't know if you have a monthly newsletter you push out to the community? That would be great to get us all on those lists.
Yeah, we don't have a newsletter yet, but that's something that we're working on. It probably won't be monthly. It might be quarterly.
Quarterly, yeah.
So we do have that, and I have the ability that when we have an event, I can push out some flyers and information about that.
Right.
So yeah. We also do prevention stuff. So Amanda Holste, who is our prevention coordinator, we provide all of these classes. We can go out to your agencies and do a presentation, a 2.5 hour of mandatory reporting and the signs. It's called Darkness to Light, the curriculum she uses to talk about the signs of child abuse and what to do and to be educated. Because quite honestly, I would love everybody to take that. I mean, including the cashier at Safeway, because they see families walking through there and they're like, oh, something doesn't look right now. UPS drivers that deliver packages, they're in people's homes and they sometimes will see things that are like, that doesn't look right. I want to empower them to call, because they could be the person that stops whatever's going on. So We offer these to agencies, to anybody. If you have a company that you would like us to come out and talk to your employees, because even though your employees may not be working directly with kids at your agency, they have outside lives. They're little league coaches. They may belong to a church and do groups at church. So everybody has other lives that they come in contact with children, and would love to be able to train everybody.
Thank you. Actually, Beatrice, on that, can you send me that info? Because that's something that maybe the chamber can help orchestrate for the Dalles or Wasco County, and help you with the invites and that. I'd like to have that. There's nothing better than to equip and educate. And then that's the, like you said, seeing things earlier. And that piece of it. So
I
that
will
would be
certainly send you that. It's a brochure, and actually it has several trainings on there. We do a training for the schools that are internet safety, and that's a two-part training, because we train the children as well as the parents. So
okay.
Yeah, I'll send all that to you.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. So we are getting close to the top of the hour. Is there any other questions? This has been a great discussion, and thank you, Beatrice, for sharing.
Oh, absolutely.
Quick question. What's the location of your new center?
206 Wasco Loop. It's kind of behind the Walmart in Hood River. It's we love the location because it's easy access to the freeway. So for folks that are traveling on I-84, it's easier to get in on and off.
I know where that is, yeah.
Yeah.
Your maps has you back at your old place up by Montello. Yeah.
Oh, it's going to take us probably a year to try to change everything around.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Any other comments, Beatrice?
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I sometimes go off the rails because I'm very passionate about this work, and I feel very strongly that this is where we need to be looking at and investing in children right now. So thank you for the opportunity. And any of you, if you have any questions, if you'd like to come and tour our facility, please do so. I'd love to show you.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you all so much. And I appreciate you being here. You can help carry this message, important work to others, and let them know and share with them. And there again, we will have this video up on YouTube by next week. That link is always in our e-blast every Monday morning to all of our past sessions. So please check that out and share those with your partners. And that's how we spread the message. And so we appreciate that. But with that, all of you be safe out there. I've heard that several of you have snow. I'm sitting where it's just rain in Portland, so I'm okay, but I do have people traveling back and forth to come and help me with this promotion for the Dalles. But you guys take care, be safe, and have a great weekend. And thank you all so much.
Thank you, Beatrice.